Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Deep Cut Dive. I got in the co-captain's chair once again here on this Friday. Martin Popoff. Good morning, Martin. How are you doing today?
Absolutely. Good morning, Pete.
We're going to talk a little Scorpions today.
Sure, let's do it.
Big, long catalog, couple different eras, popular stuff, some not so popular. Little mix of everything here. So Martin and I were tasked with going back into this long catalog and pulling out each 5 nuggets from any of the eras, from any of the albums. And the criteria is no hit singles, no songs that were played on their classic live albums or songs that were played live all the time. But, you know, if they were played on the tour of the album, that's okay, as long as they were kind of really not drawn from again. So basically for the casual fans, this is going to be the show for you. So don't expect to hear Rock You Like a Hurricane and Blackout and Holiday and all that kind of stuff today. We're going to try and kind of pick those nuggets from within all the other albums that maybe you haven't heard before. So, and I urge all of you Scorpions fanatics who know the catalog quite well to do the same thing in the comments below. Pick out some nuggets for those newbies that might be out there. I kind of find it hard to imagine that there's folks out here who have never heard the Scorpions, but hey, who knows? Who knows? So Martin, I at least will give you a start into discovering the magic of this German heavy metal machine, the Scorpions. I'll have Martin kick us off with his first selection.
Okay, so first one, I want to qualify, first of all, I hope I'm not picking anything that isn't on any of the classic live albums, because I'm not too good at, I never kind of check the live albums, and I'm also, you're much better at knowing, you know, across many bands. It's very impressive, but what songs were played live a lot of times, so I'm not big on that either. I just kind of know what's not the hits sort of thing, right? So, so that being said, let's start with the first one, and I hope this wasn't a big played all the time one. I did skip way forward to this album, Taken by Force, right? This is the cover we got over in North America, right? I think yours all in America are the same way, right?
Yep.
I think Germany and Japan definitely had the really, you know, striking sort of crosses graveyard cover, right?
Yeah.
Which was pretty wild on that. So I picked I've Got to Be Free from this album. It's not one of the big songs on it. Will Burn the Sky is bigger. And then the very big ones are, of course, Sails of Charon and Steam Rock Fever off this record. I love I've Got to Be Free. I love that there's this sort of there's this really cool modern riff that kind of crunches in, dovetailed with this sort of funky, clean guitar going along, and a really good vocal melody. This is something that Scorpions does well, does good a lot, is vocal melodies. I think Klaus deserves more credit for that. But yeah, this song just kind of cruises along. It's really groovy. It's got a really neat solo section later on, kind of an elongated section with some really tasty but still grinding sort of soloing going on. So you get to hear. This is actually my only choice from the Uli and Rudolph era combined. You know, there were songs I could have picked from earlier, but they're more like I personally like the bigger, more famous, heavier songs from earlier on. So I thought this was the first one to put in. I definitely had to include at least one. But yeah, my list's a little surprising because it's later era. So yeah, this is just a good, heavy one that kind of creeps up on you. It's not so obviously heavy as Steam Rock Fever and Sails of Charon, but it's actually a really heavy song. By the time it rolls by, it takes a long time. It's just a cool, groovy, you know, definitely a heavy metal one on this one.
Good choice and a really good album that I think has a couple of songs that definitely qualify for this show, as we're going to get to in a couple minutes with my choice from that album. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to go back to the Lonesome Crow album.
All right.
From 1972 for a song called It All Depends.
Interesting. I can't even picture that one in my head. So there we go. Well, yeah, here's our, in Canada, we all got red ones, right?
There you go.
On kind of a punk label. So in Canada, practically every copy that you get of this was on red vinyl. So kind of a weird reissue thing. Yeah. Sorry.
So curious for all you U.S. folks watching. So I had my old copy of Lonesome Crow that I had back in the early 80s. What the LP had, I could have sworn it was a Rodney Matthews cover, but it had like the giant scorpion on the front and like a desert scene. Yeah. And so if anybody remembers like what label that was on, I had that on LP. I don't have it anymore, obviously, but that's the one that I had before I got the CD. So back to It All Depends. It's got this kind of bluesy guitar from a really young Michael Schenker. I get like a real, like Lucifer's Friend vibe on this song, which is not surprising because Lucifer's Friend, most of the band other than John Lawton, the vocalist, were all from Germany. So it has that kind of like early 70s German hard rock feel to it, a little mixed with a little bit of Cream and some kind of like krautrock. So I think that first album is very, very different for the band. It's rocking. It's kind of got a little bits of psych thrown in, but man, the guitar work of young Michael Schenker, who was 15 years old, I think, when he recorded this album, pretty damn good. And easily, if you listen to this album, and you know that this guy was destined for big things. And as history shows, he proved it, right? So it all depends on the first album. Could have picked any number of songs on here. You know, In Search of the Peace of Mind is the big one. I'm Going Mad. They actually did a video for, so I didn't want to go with that. But there you have my first choice.
Wow, that's cool. I got to go listen to that again. You mentioned krautrock. I mean, the interesting thing is they kind of started with that more or less fully on this album. It's a full square krautrock album, and then Fly to the Rainbow's kind of more than half that way or half that way, and then In Trance is maybe a third that way, right? Yep. So, you know, and that's such an interesting genre, right? I mean, it's got prog, it's got jazziness that, you know, they use a lot of horns and stuff in krautrock, right? But they love their hard rock too, and there's a lot of hard rockin' bands from that thing. Harry Chapter, Deshin, right? There's some really cool heavy albums from that whole genre, and Scorpions, well, even Lonesome Crow kind of fits in the heavier end.
Oh yeah, and they love to jam. All those bands love to jam.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so my second one is Falling in Love from this record, Animal Magnetism. There we go. So what I like about this song is, again, you know, this album has much more famous songs like The Zoo and Animal Magnetism. What I like about this song is that, again, it's proving Klaus's great ability to have cool vocal melodies that are counter to what's going on. And what's going on this one is that now we're in the Matthias Jabs, not sure how to pronounce it, era. You get a band that is moving towards this sort of Keith Richards, Ron Woods, Malcolm and Angus dialogue back and forth between guitars, and it's not so much riffing anymore. It's like stacked chords that are really kind of interesting, and that's what I like about this one. Although another cool thing about this one is the intro of it. Compare it to the verse of "Rock You Like a Hurricane." It's got that kind of weird little riff that they kind of revive on "Rock You Like a Hurricane" 2 albums later. Or 2 albums later. Yeah. So yeah, this is a cool one. It's considered you know, a little bit of a deep cut, I think, because I mean, it wasn't talked about a lot, but also it's got this title, Falling in Love, which is just one of those titles that just kind of blows by you. It's not flashy, right? But yeah, it's a good heavy one. I always loved it, and I always like this idea that some of these Scorpion songs, they're very melodic, but they still feel really heavy to you because they feel really Euro, and a term we used to use in the old days, Teutonic, right? Yes. It has that really European, you know, proto power metal feel to it. So yeah, Falling in Love.
Yeah, one of my favorites from that album, and absolutely Teutonic rock. I mean, we use that term all the time in the 80s. Definitely. Yeah. All right, my next one, let's move ahead to 1975 I got this kind of cool little compilation which has a couple albums on it, but In Trance is the album we're talking about.
All right.
Song is called Longing for Fire.
Cool.
Good catchy song. There you go, the bigger version. Yeah, there's the guys right there. Klaus's vocals are amazing on here. This just had this rich feel to them. It's only, you listen to it, you almost think there's like the rest of the guys are all singing backup, but it's all him. A smoking Uli Roth solo in this one, and I just think the song, going to go back to that Teutonic thing, it sounds very German. This has just got German hard rock written all over it, and at the time, you know, nobody sounded like these guys. I mean, especially, you know, if you're here in North America, the Scorpions were a very different sort of band because German heavy bands were like non-existent as far as like, you know, the more popular stuff that people were listening to. You're either from like Great Britain, the UK, or, you know, here in America or in North America. And then all of a sudden these guys came along. It's like, wow, that's pretty different. So yeah, Longing for Fire. And it's not that long of a song either. It's kind of short and compact and just very, very catchy.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. My next one, hang on. Yeah. My next one is off of this record, Blackout. And oh yeah, I can't turn it over because this is a frame thing. I tend to put these, I do these pass things when I get the stuff all signed up, and I frame them in these things and hang them up. But yeah, Blackout, amazing, amazing record. I picked China White from this album. You know, it's one that a lot of people don't talk about. Obviously, there's the big, you know, proto semi power ballad hits on this. Blackout's an amazing song. There's all sorts of huge famous songs off this record. I think it went double platinum. So yeah, they're really off to the races and doing well now. It has that distinctive album cover to it where the guy, you know, the funny story is I think that's the artist, right? And it looks so much like Rudolph, and that's just a coincidence, right?
Yeah, we all thought it was Rudolph growing up, right? It's like, oh,
exactly, yeah, exactly, yeah. So this is a cool slow one. It's really long and it's got some really cool stuff later on. It feels like the band's Kashmir in a way. It's got this dropout for the verse, and Klaus is kind of singing all mystical and reflective, and then it comes back to that heavy, really, really interesting, intricate riff. And you know, Herman's just like, you know, huge drums, and it's got weird sections later on and cool solo sections, really bizarre sounds on it. But yeah, just kind of a different lyric for them. You know, you don't expect them to have a song called China White, right? But yeah, and it really kind of breaks up the album. You've got those kind of, you know, the power ballady stuff. You got the fast stuff, the Blackout. You got everything going, and then there's this super slow song on there. And yeah, oddly, it's one that people don't talk about much. And I suppose, I hope they didn't play it live too much. I don't think they played it live too much, but if they didn't, it would be because it's so slow, right? It's just not really one that's going to translate in a huge way live. But yeah, it just shows, you know, it might be one of these that has the vestiges of the old, you know, note dance riffing sort of sound of as they transition into the 80s. So just a cool, lethal, awesome, you know, dynamic, extra kind of thing to get on what's just a really cool album anyways.
Yeah, it's a very cool song, and I'm trying, while you're talking, I'm trying to remember, because I saw them on that tour. They opened up for Rainbow. I saw them at Madison Square Garden. I'm trying to remember if they played it on that tour, but I don't think so, because they were still playing the Zoo at that time, obviously, which they always play. And I think China White's kind of like an extension of the Zoo, but with vocals. They both have that kind of same feel, so it really wouldn't make sense to play both of those songs in a set, right? So, yeah. But a great song.
One other thing I forgot to mention, I mean, that riff sounds like a Michael Schenker riff to me for some reason. It really sounds like something Michael would come up with.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's move on to Taken by Force, 1977, which Martin has already drawn from. I'm going to pick another one here. How about Your Light? So if you didn't think that Uli was influenced by Hendrix, if you didn't think that Uli was a big Jimi Hendrix fan, this is the song that I think he really kind of said, all right, he's my inspiration. I'm going to do like a homage to Jimi Hendrix. So there's plenty of Jimi Hendrix flavors on this song. It's got that dun, 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 type of thing going on. The rhythms, you got a really good vocal from Klaus. The song is kind of bluesy. It's funky. And you would swear there are passages on this song that were played by Jimi himself. And that just goes to show you how much Uli really loved Jimi Hendrix and still does. So, and yeah, it's quite a deep song on here. It's, you know, does anybody ever talk about that song at all? Probably not.
Yeah. Wow.
But I dig it. I think it's really cool. It's obviously a different type of tune for these guys. And they gave Uli a little bit of freedom to do a song like that. And he wrote the song. So, and then before you know it, he's gone doing his old thing, and the sound of the band changes a little bit.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Okay. All right. So my number 4, I'm going to go with Don't Stop at the Top from 1985 Savage Amusement. I think it's 85. Basically, this was the difficult follow-up album to the big hit album, Love at First Sting, right? And it was difficult in that, you know, Dieter Dierks is getting even more and more, you know, hard to work with. Like, he's just such a perfectionist, right? And it's just taking them forever to make this album. But again, this is one where I see a little bit of the intelligence that was lost on the Love at First Sting album. There's a lot of stuff on there that's really kind of mainstreamy and radio-ish and simple. Loved Rock You Like a Hurricane when it came out as an advanced single. I mean, I thought the album was going to be amazing, and it was such a disappointment when it came out because there wasn't a lot of super cool, heavy stuff on it. But I thought this song recaptured some of the intelligence, and again, you get that cool chatter on this one on the guitars between Rudolph and Matthias, and just good transitions from. I know it's the opening track on the album, but I mean, basically everything on this is pretty deep tracks. I mean, the album was considered even a sales disappointment, and people really don't talk about the record very much. I think it's a better album overall. That's the other reason I wanted to pick it. I think it's a better album overall than people give it credit for, and I would even say it's a shade even heavier than Love at First Sting. But it's certainly, you know, these two really go together. Crazy World kind of goes with this record as well. But yeah, I just thought it, you know, really cool pre-chorus and chorus. The one thing Scorpions are good at is sort of putting together songs that seem accessible, but they're heavy at the same time. And then they are so exacting with the way they can measure and put in, you know, just the right amount of that Teutonicness at will. It could be a lot, it could be a little, but up into this era, they found a way to combine that with a hair metal idea. And Michael Schenker kind of did the same thing. Yeah. Michael's catalog is very similar in that he learns to strike a tasteful balance between the hair metal and the proto power metal at the same time.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not stupid. They know what's selling, right? So you might as well go down that route because that's what everybody's doing. So I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, it's great that they retain that Teutonicness, that German style, because I think that's what made them unique as a band. All right, so for my number 4 here, I'm going to go to 1980 to Animal Magnetism, another album that Martin has already touched on. I'm going to go with a song called Hold Me Tight, which, again, another song that kind of signals that new direction of the band. You know, it's got that big metallic riffing. You got pounding drums from Mr. Herman Rarebill, and that's exactly how he plays. It's just, you know what you're going to get from the guy. He's always really rock solid. You got Klaus wailing up a storm on this song. The one thing I don't like about this track is, and I think Rudolph plays more leads on this album than any other album, probably because Matthias is just kind of getting infiltrated in the band. This has a pretty lousy guitar solo from Rudolph, I think. It's not good at all. It's just like 3 notes just kind of played over and over again, and it's just like, ugh. But the rest of the song, kick ass. Is it one of the best Scorpion songs of all time? No, but I think it's a good deep track here. That's it's heavy. It's heavy, and there's actually a lot of heavy stuff on this album. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the tracks. Only a Man's really cool. Don't Make No Promises Your Body Can't Keep. I mean, basically, this record to me, I always there's bands that have albums that are that seem like they're 8s throughout, and then there's bands, and then they follow up. Like Blackout to me is this way. So this one's kind of like really uniform sound throughout, and then Blackout comes out, and there are like a few 10s, you know, in terms of songs in there, and a few really crappy ones as well. So it's a peaks and valleys album versus a regular album, and that's like I was saying. I think we were. Maybe we weren't talking about this, but I actually, it was on my podcast. Twisted Sister, the second album, is one of those uniform albums to me, and then Stay Hungry is one of those peaks and valleys albums. And I that's the way I've always, since I was a kid, thought of this record going into Blackout.
Yeah, it's like one of those albums that the consistency from start to finish is pretty high, as opposed to some other more well-known albums that have a couple of great tracks, then the rest is kind of mediocre.
Yeah,
I agree. Cool.
Okay, so my last one, number 5, I'm going to go with, from this album here. This is Unbreakable, 2004. I actually switched, even this morning, between 2 tracks. I'm going to go with Blood Too Hot off of this album. This album, of the later records, I think is probably the best one. Although Return to Forever was pretty good too. But this is the one where they made a concerted effort to try to get away from the nonsense of trying pop like Def Leppard did, right, on XXX, and with Scorpions it's like, what is it called? Pure Instinct. It Faced the Heat as well. What's the really bad one where the faces are on the cover where they're really pop?
That was like mid-late 90s, right?
Instinct. Anyways, yeah, Scorpions tried this like to go really pop, the same way Def Leppard tried it, you know, briefly there. But Unbreakable is one where they're back to that, you know, trying to have that pretty consistent guitar alloy, that really definite Scorpion sound throughout. So This is one of the heavy ones where there is a mix of riff, and again, just the chords stacked beautifully like pancakes, you know, just they have this way of making these accessible yet still European sounding songs. And the other one that I was going to go with originally is the second track on the album, Love 'Em or Leave 'Em, which is the same sort of thing. And again, got to give credit to Klaus for vocal melodies. A lot of people don't even know what a vocal melody is, but it's that idea of coming up with sort of a sub song that does something different from the chords underneath it or the riff underneath it. So it's something that's very counter, that you know, before you hear it, you have no idea that that's going to go with those chords. So, you know, it's probably not a hard thing to do. I don't think it's a hard thing to do, but it's good when people put some thought into it and come up with a cool vocal melody. And Love 'Em or Leave 'Em has that. Blood Too Hot, very, very cool, same way. So yeah, we got to give Klaus credit for what he does on top of these songs, even when they are these simpler songs from the band. But yeah, pretty decent, consistent album from them.
Yeah, you know what? You bring up a good point about Klaus. I think we've probably both been in lots of conversations about the great metal singers of all time, and he's like one of those guys that doesn't often come up in like that upper echelon. And he probably belongs up there. I mean, he is a very unique singer that I think has done some really, really great things. And you just kind of talked about some of those aspects of his vocal style and the way he layers the vocals in these songs. And a lot,
you know, and maybe, you know, bringing up that point, it's a good point. The other reason he should be considered up there is because of his longevity. He is actually in good shape, and his voice is in good shape live, and that the band is really energetic live, right? So, you know, without naming names, we know there's a lot of these classic singers that have really dropped off the cliff, right? And dramatically are losing their voice. Klaus is one of those that has kept it pretty good. Granted, I believe, hang on, is it Klaus that told me he was proud that they don't down tune anything live? Maybe it's not them. Maybe they are down tuning. I can't remember. But yeah, you know, that is one way to you know, to cheat the system somewhat, right? Is down tuning all the songs. But Klaus is singing great. He looks great. He's stayed in good shape. So that's the other reason he should be up there.
And he's been touring since what, 1970, 1969, pretty regularly. You would,
yeah,
you know, most guys.
They're one of those really old bands. Yeah. Yeah, and even before Klaus, I think even before he was the singer, don't they go back to the mid-'60s?
Yeah,
somehow?
Like 65 or 66.
Yeah, they're one of those weird ones, yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing because, again, and no real break in the action for the Scorpions. I mean, they've been like a regular playing band the entire time. So he must be dipping from that fountain of youth like Glenn Hughes is, I think, you know. It's got to be. It's got to be. All right, my final track today is going to be from Love at First Sting from 1984. And this is a pretty deep cut here, and nobody ever talks about this song. It's right in the middle of the album, called The Same Thrill.
Oh, good one, yeah.
Fast and Furious, blazing Matthias guitar solos all over Creation on that song. You know, the gang vocals on the chorus. Klaus is just singing up a storm on here. I always thought that this was one of the stronger tracks on this album. It just got ignored. And did they ever play this live? I don't even know. I don't remember.
No. Yeah.
But it seems like it would be like a perfect song for the stage, right? I mean, just rousing, just energetic track. And, you know, unfortunately, I don't think we would get a lot of tunes like that from the Scorpions in the couple of years that would follow. But that's the early 80s. The Scorpions would throw out those little Fast and Furious barn burners on every album. So.
You're killing me now. I should have picked Crossfire from that. That would have been a true from the heart deep cut off of this album for me. I think it's one of my favorites on the album. I think it's one of the smarter ones. That's the one with kind of like a reggae tilt to it, right?
Yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah, really cool tune. And it's another one they don't talk about very much.
As Soon as the Good Times Roll is another one. That's like
yeah, that one always gets mixed into those like the big city nights hits and stuff for me. I don't know. That might have been. I don't know. It might have been a single somewhere, but it feels like, and now we're getting into those bad titles and the bad lyrics. I know you and I never talked. We don't want to put Scorpions down here, but man, they had lousy lyrics even before Herman was there, and they had lousy lyrics when Herman was there, and they still have lousy lyrics, and it's like, come on, guys, you know, eventually you got to fix that part of the game, right? It's just really, really cheesy and all about rock and roll and blah, blah, blah. You know, they tried a little harder once in a while with Humanity One, but you know, they're getting outside songwriters in at certain places to make that better, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. They just never really solved that end of it, you know, to my satisfaction. Anyways.
I agree with you. I find a lot of their lyrics very juvenile and kind of adolescent-ish. And, you know, for guys of their age, it's like, come on, there's got to be more exciting things to sing about and write songs about. Oh, well. So there you have 10 recommendations deep into the catalog of the Scorpions from Martin and myself. Feel free to list some of yours down in the comments below. If you're new to the Scorpions, like I said, I'd be surprised if you were, but if you are, you got 10 songs to check out. You know, Martin's leaned a little later in their career. I did some early stuff, so I think it's a good mix of flavors from you know, throughout the industry. So check them out and visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Martin, you got some new stuff coming out. You want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, not much coming out. I do have the Thin Lizzy visual biography coming out, and I've been out of stock on the actual Scorpions book, but I have more of this arriving. So this is the Weimer edition, the updated edition of my Scorpions book. So I've got that coming in, some Born Again coming in, which I ran out of, a couple other things I ran out of. So I've got a big palette arriving, hopefully sometime this week. But yeah, that's kind of about it. And the big one coming down the pipes is Rush Limelight. So anything that's in print, you can get from martinpopoff.com. There's PayPal buttons there for everything. I sign them, send them up from the office here.
Yeah, and I want to stress, every time Martin comes on the show, we get a lot of comments like, Pete, where can I get Martin's books? Go right to his website. That's the best place. To stop searching all over the internet for them. Go right to Martin's website. You deal with him directly. He ships them out immediately. It's the quickest, easiest way to get any of Martin's books that are still in print. So I recommend doing that. And everything that's in print, you got listed all over with detailed explanations. Very easy to order. So that's your best bet. martinpopoff.com.
Yes.
Cool. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you Monday morning, bright and early, for another edition of Deep Cut Dive. We've got Jeff Young from Megadeth coming on the show. We're going to do a deep cut dive into Fleetwood Mac, so you don't want to miss that. Martin will be back, I think, late next week. Martin and I and Jack Toledano, we're going to get together to do a deep cut dive into Rush, and then we'll see where that takes us after that. So all sorts of stuff in the works. So we'll see you guys later on. Take care. Bye-bye.
Very cool.